Death of people. Death, 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 horrible death.
You have stadiums of people chanting, "Kill the farmer," and then you have farmers being killed, but still don't draw any connection between those two things. Ever since the death of Nelson Mandela, it's fair to call Cyril Ramaphosa one of the few surviving founding fathers of post-apartheid South Africa. He helped to write the country's new constitution, which would supposedly usher in a new era of prosperity and equality. He also oversaw the transition to the new government. And as South Africa descended into lawlessness and squalor over the ensuing 30 years, Ramaphosa gradually accumulated more wealth and power until he finally became the country's president in 2018. He's currently worth something like $500 million, even as the vast majority of South Africans now live in extreme poverty. What this means is that Ramaphosa is the personification of South Africa's post-colonial experiment. When he drafted the new constitution, he presumably did not foresee that by 2025, the country would have the single highest unemployment rate of any country in the world at 40%. He certainly didn't tell anyone that he eventually planned to sign new laws that would disenfranchise and rob white farmers, or that white people would be systematically slaughtered in their homes. But all that has happened. And yet, for all this time, no one, and certainly no world leader, has held this deranged despot accountable for any of that. Instead, it's been something of a tradition in Washington to pretend that South Africa is somehow a great ally to the United States and to treat Ramaphosa as royalty, as Joe Biden did a few years ago. But that tradition came to a very abrupt end yesterday in the Oval Office when Donald Trump did something that no other political figure has ever done. He told Ramaphosa to his face in the most public forum imaginable that he's a fraud who is overseeing a white genocide. And in the process, Trump took a blowtorch to a mythology that pretty much every politician from both parties has been desperate to uphold for several decades. Now, in order to understand the importance of what Donald Trump communicated here, you have to first see exactly how he communicated it. Now, first, of course, Ramaphosa asked the United States for money, because that's any visiting dignitary now. That's what they do. They come hat in hand as beggars asking for our money. And in this case, he's done that because he's run his country into the ground and they can't even feed themselves anymore. Then a reporter asked a patronizing question about what it would take for Trump to stop repeating supposedly false claims about white genocide in South Africa. In other words, the reporter's basically calling Trump a liar and asking him what it would take for him to stop lying. And here's how that went.
Our main real reason for being here is to foster trade and investment so that we are able to grow our economy with your support, and so that we are also able to address all these societal problems, because criminality thrives when people are unemployed, when they have no other hope to eke out a living. So that is what we need to resolve.
President Assange, what will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for the President. It's for him. No, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be.
Our President will respond to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends.
So, after begging for cash, Ramaphosa validates what the reporter is saying, is being patronizing to the President of the United States, to our president. He says Donald Trump needs to listen to the people of South Africa in order to stop lying about the alleged genocide of white people. It's probably the most obnoxious answer that he could have come up with, especially after dozens of South Africans just fled the country in fear of their lives. But Trump was prepared for it. First of all, Trump asked one of the white golfers that Ramaphosa brought with him, this is a two-time U.S. Open winner named Retief Goosen, what the situation was like in South Africa. And the golfer responded that his father's friends who own farms have been murdered and the farms are constantly being torched. Watch.
I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane, and there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer, and some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it, but it's a constant battle with farms trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer, and at the end of the day, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers to produce the food.
Farming, right? He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing, right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. Without those two things, you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water's great. Obviously, all the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down there. But it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the water out.
So does your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
There's nowhere to live.
You know, both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult.
So this is a pretty extraordinary moment because keep in mind, this is one of the golfers that the president of South Africa brought to the Oval Office as part of the South Africa's delegation, hoping he'd neutralize the supposedly fake narrative, quote unquote, about white genocide. This is one of the people that the president of South Africa demanded obnoxiously that Trump listen to. He said, all you have to do is listen to these people. And then it's this is essentially a witness for the defense, basically. And this is what he says. So it didn't exactly go as planned, which probably tells you something about the level of planning that South Africa's government is capable of. And things only got worse from there as Trump dimmed the lights in the Oval Office and played a tape of South African politicians openly calling for the murders of white farmers. In other words, Trump once again called Ramaphosa's bluff. He listened to the calls for genocide coming from South Africans, and he made Ramaphosa and the rest of the world listen to it as well. And as you watch this, notice the expression on the South African president's face as he genuinely cannot believe what's happening. Watch.
It has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa,
a revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot, kill, Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer, pa, 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 pa,
Oh, look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death, 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 horrible death. Death, I don't know. To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is indeed true?
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
So just, I mean, it's an incredible moment. Again, remember the South African president, what queued this up perfectly. And you could not have scripted it any better, where the South African president said, well, what Trump needs to do is just listen. And so then Trump says, okay, well, listen. Yeah, let's do that. Hey, what do you think? Let's all listen. Let's all just listen for a moment. Now, if you have listened to this show or been active on social media over the past year or so, then you've seen or heard most of those clips that we just saw there or heard. And you've heard stories like the ones that Trump just cited. And that's because in South Africa, black politicians have openly called for genocide for many years now. White farmers have been tortured in their homes for decades in attacks that are clearly racially motivated. And instead of stopping the carnage, the government has just passed a law allowing the government to seize land from white people without compensating them. All this has been known for. The corporate press pretended to be surprised by this footage from South Africa. So before we go back to the Oval Office incident yesterday, let's take a brief look at that coverage. So here's ABC, for example. And watch as they deliberately give the impression that they had never seen anything like this footage before.
There was a striking moment when a reporter asked President Trump, what would it take for you to believe that there are not genocide being committed toward these white farmers? And the South African president, Terry, actually jumped in and he said that it would take President Trump's friends, some of whom he brought, it would take President Trump listening to them to understand that what he believes is untrue. And just to point out as well that President Trump, ever the producer in chief, he dimmed the light. He asked the team to dim the lights at one point, rolled the video to try and bolster his claims. You could see that the South African president during that moment was visibly surprised. And at one point said he didn't know where these videos were coming from. He hadn't seen them. We do not know the source, Terry, of the videos that were played.
We do not know the source of the videos. Pretty extraordinary. I mean, there's only two explanations for how that reporter could make a statement like that. Either she's monumentally lazy and she's confessing that no one at ABC News is capable of verifying the authenticity of footage that's been available on the internet for years, or she's deliberately lying to ABC's viewers and trying to get them to believe that the footage might be fake. Those are the options. And if anyone at ABC News was actually interested in the truth about what's happening in South Africa, they tell their audience that, yes, the footage is real and the genocide of white people is something that they are openly encouraging over there. Now, for his part, after Trump played the footage in the Oval Office, Ramaphosa offered this response. And as you listen to this, See if you can spot the very familiar sleight of hand trick that he uses. Watch.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah,
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and then
take
when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens to
There
them.
is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The
been
farmers are
utilized.
black. The farmers are not black.
We
I don't
now-
say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black.
Now, first of all, he's right that some of the clips show politicians from minority parties in South Africa. That's true. It's not very reassuring, though, for two reasons. First of all, these minority parties are filling stadiums with tens of thousands of people chanting about murdering white farmers. So we're not talking about one fringe politician here. And of course, if it was the reverse, if it was a stadium full of white people chanting, kill the black people, thousands of people saying that, nobody would be reassured by saying, oh, that's just a minority party.